Hello, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Ashley Nicole Moss here, John Gonzalez here. And listen, it has been a very long time before before we have seen NBA basketball on our TV. And we have a couple of more days
Couple more
left
days.
of waiting. John, it is like waiting for rain in the desert. And in the meantime, it's been Armageddon in the sports world. So I don't know about you, but I am so happy for the Celtics and the Mavs to get closer and closer as the days progress.
Yeah, we were talking about it. The sports media hot take industrial complex kind of self-immolated yesterday and the day before, and that's never been my bag. Like I always like those shows. I know that they're designed like the McAfees and Stephen A's of the world have enriched themselves many times over and made many more millions than I ever will in my life. And I realize that they're designed to do this kind of thing where like they're going to get people's blood up and they're going to get people to pay attention, and that those views and those listeners end up fueling and stuffing their pockets. I get it. It's just like, to me, the lowest form of discourse, and it's like the worst part about our business. And that whole conversation around Caitlin Clark has gotten so gross, and also like Steve and I talking about the black women that he works with and how he got them over, and like nobody had heard of them until they saw it on a TV set with him. It's like, what are we doing? What are we doing? It's not for me.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the hot take aspect of the industry, it's in some regard, is entertainment. I feel like in the past few years, it's kind of pushed more to one direction than the other. I have never been somebody who, is so anti hot take, but I think there's a line that shouldn't be crossed. And I think we're so far past that line. When we talk Jordan, LeBron, and who's the GOAT, that's hot takey, to a degree, especially, the way that it's kind of been retold and resold. But I feel like, to your point, what we're doing now is even so far from that, and it's just messy and it's gross and it's vile. And I feel like if we're going to exist in a hot take space, which again I don't feel like is going away anytime soon, there should be parameters of how far people are willing to go for a form of entertainment. And I think that where we are now is just way too far. Let's get back to making fun of Pat Beverly and stuff like that. That's always fun. Speaking
Yeah,
of
I mean,
Pat.
that, like, I guess it's entertainment for some people. For me, it's not. Entertainment for me is like, let's talk about basketball. Basketball is fun. It's coming back. I really enjoy it. Like getting into those conversations that those guys have. It's like, no thanks,
Yeah.
not for
Well,
me.
we're going to talk about basketball today.
Yeah,
And we're going to be talking obviously about the NBA finals. And we have a couple of more days until they kick off on Thursday. It's been a
yeah. You
long,
can't
long
rush these things.
time. Huh?
I said you can't rush these things.
Unfortunately, we can't. I think, next year the league might look into like maybe expediting the finals depending on, how quickly the teams finish the conference finals. This seems a little dramatic in effect in terms of making us wait this long. But
I
what do
I
I know?
I was thinking about the last time I covered before joining CBS and getting back on the NBA full time. But the last time I covered the NBA full time, my last season for the Ringer was 2019, and that game 5 of that 2019 finals that the Raptors ended up winning on the Golden State Warriors home floor to finish out that series was, I believe, the 5th of June, and we are today the 4th, and the finals haven't even started yet.
Yeah, so and then it's a whole stretch out. Listen, all I know is, and before we get into the show, I'm just going to say this. I'm going to say this so the basketball gods hear me. I'm going to say this so Adam Silver hears me, the referees hear me. Whoever has to hear me better hear me. You did not make me wait this long for a sweep. I better get 7 games. That's all I know, because this is ridiculous. This is dramatic. This is over the top. I better get a 7-game NBA final series for making me wait and making the fans wait this long. If I get a sweep, I swear to God, I'm going to be so pissed off. I'm
If
going to
it
be so mad.
You were just talking about how you were enjoying the rest, though, because if you get your 7 games, it's going to be June 23rd. So
Uh-huh.
the 6th to the 23rd is a long time.
That's okay. I've had 4 days of rest. I'm good. I'm
Okay.
good to go. It's my final push.
All right.
This is like when, in NASCAR where they go to the pit stop and they get new tires and stuff like that. I'm good. 7
You're,
games. I need it. If I get a sweep, we will riot, and it's going to be bad. So,
all right.
in the meantime, though, we're going to go ahead and dissect the 10 biggest questions heading into the NBA finals, which again are starting Thursday. That's June 7th, June 6th, June 7th,
6th.
what June 6th. So a couple of more days, couple of more waits, a couple more sleeps, a couple
Mhm,
more days of chaos, hopefully not. But first, we're going to start with the big news. Kristaps Porzingis is going to be available for game one if everything goes according to plan. That news came out earlier today as well. It has been confirmed. Now, again, a lot can happen in the course of a few days, but if everything goes to plan, he will be there. Now, he has missed 5 weeks with a left calf strain. He's fully practicing, so good news there. Now, Al Horford, who recently celebrated a birthday, has averaged 32 minutes a game without Porzingis. And as we know about Al Horford, he's not a spring chicken. I think that's safe
mhm.
to say. He's a little up there in age. But Porzingis, as we've mentioned, 5 weeks missed time with a left calf strain, coming back for the biggest game of the season, the biggest series of the season. There's always that conversation about rest versus rust. There's always that conversation about how much time is too much time away from the game and how much time do you need to get reacclimated to the game when being away from it from a certain time. So, with all of those things kind of being taken into consideration, any concerns about Kristaps Porzingis missing this much time and kind of being thrust in to the NBA Finals without seeing any type of playoff physicality so far this season?
Yeah, I mean, there's concern because you
Okay.
don't know how healthy he is, right? I mean, and he hasn't played in a while, and he's gonna have to
Mhm.
knock off some of that rust. But it's still a win for the Celtics. I mean, getting him
Right.
back means that Al Horford, despite the fact that our producer Aaron Larcel continually dumps on him and besmirches his good name, is still a very good NBA player. Now, yes, he has been hunted at various points during the postseason, and his perimeter defense. You don't want to drag him too far away from the rim because then all of a sudden he gets put on skates a little bit. But if you're only playing Al Horford as a backup center and you can split the minutes between
Yeah.
Kristaps and Al Horford, then all of a sudden that's a win for the Celtics. Now, you'd like to get some more minutes out of Kristaps, but I'm going to guess that they're going to bring him along slowly. So, if you can get, I don't know, 20 to 25 minutes out of Kristaps to start the series,
Mhm.
that's pretty good.
I mean, he obviously provides a lot of scoring, additional scoring for the
Mhm.
Boston Celtics, but that rim protection against Lively and Gafford's going to be huge. Lively's been having an incredible series or incredible postseason in general. For people who are not familiar with him, I'm somebody who believes that he is going to be a name you need to watch for a very long time. He's so young; he's only 20 years old, I believe. I feel like his ceiling is so high. So getting Porzingis back is going to be huge. Going against a team as young as the Dallas Mavericks with so much youth in their defensive efforts, right? But let's go ahead and play devil's advocate here, right? Porzingis comes in, he's not 100%. And this is something that we have seen kind of be a pattern in his career. We saw it with Washington as a New York Knicks fan. I saw it. He comes in, still a couple of tweaks there, and then ultimately he goes backwards rather than going forward. Any concerns that if that is something that ends up happening, because you never know until you know, right? You don't know until you put him out there, see how he plays, see how he adjusts. If something goes backwards, you won't know until he plays. Any concern then with Boston's chances to get the best of Dallas if Kristaps Porzingis is not 100% and you once again have to rely heavily on Al Horford, who just celebrated his 38th birthday?
Happy birthday, Al Horford, one of the true good guys in the NBA. He's a
Cute
delight to
kids too.
I
Really
mean,
cute kids.
the family, like, it didn't go great for him in Philly, but he's just like such a consummate professional, and he's a delight to talk to. He carries himself the way that you should as a professional basketball player, professional athlete. So happy birthday to Al. Any concerns over Kristaps? No, because it's a luxury for them. They could win this series without him, and getting him back.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, they could.
I
They, I,
I could,
yeah,
sure. Does it even the playing field more for Dallas? Absolutely. I
sure.
feel like I wouldn't be surprised if Dallas could best them without Porzingis on the floor. I think they need Kristaps Porzingis.
Dallas could win the series with Kristaps on the floor. I'm just saying Boston would still be the favorite even without Kristaps Porzingis. Adding him back in makes them a heavier favorite. If you
Okay.
took him out, or if he doesn't play well, or if he's not fully healthy, Boston has the redundancies on Boston. They're six deep. They're the
Mhm.
deepest team in the NBA for a reason. You take him out, yes, you still have Al Horford as your starting center, and that is a drop off because he is
Mhm.
38 years old and he's not the same guy he was previously. But the other four guys are unbelievable. So Yeah, I mean, like they have so many good players on the Celtics, and this is just one more guy that they're adding into the mix.
We'll talk more about the players that you mentioned, specifically Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum on the side of the Celtics a little bit later on the show. But there are a lot of storylines within the major storyline of the NBA Finals this year. Obviously, Porzingis once played in Dallas. He was once a
Mhm.
Dallas Mavericks. Kids, if you don't recall that, you might be too young for this conversation. But
Who's
also,
too young? What kind of zygote do you think is listening to this program that they don't remember Kristaps
I don't
Porzingis
know.
from like 2 it's
Basketball
like a
has fans.
tadpole you're talking about.
Basketball has fans of all age. Sometimes they don't pay attention to things. I'm just giving them all the facts here.
They're
But also,
if they miss this, they're like still in grade school.
once upon a time, kids, Kyrie Irving also played for the Boston Celtics. It wasn't the greatest tenure. I'll give you the cliff notes, if you will. He played 2 seasons for Boston and gave this whole speech about how he was going to re-sign and how he wanted to remain a Boston Celtic. And the Celtics fans rejoiced and they celebrated and they loved it. And then, well, things happened and he ended up in Brooklyn with Kevin Durant, James Harden. That situation didn't go well. We know how that goes. And the Boston fans did what the Boston fans do, and Kyrie Irving became enemy number one. And if you recall, when Kyrie went back to the TD Garden as a Brooklyn Net, he saged the garden. He stepped on the sacred image that is Lucky the Leprechaun, and the Celtics fans went crazy. They burned his jersey. He flipped them off. It was very, very exciting basketball, if you will. But Kyrie's returning to the TD Garden. He has said about his time as a Brooklyn Net that it wasn't who he was as a person. That, you know, when he flipped off the crowd in Boston, that he actually regrets it. That didn't speak to his character. He wishes he wouldn't have done it. Kyrie's coming back. How do you think he's going to handle the Boston crowd? Because they're going to make sure that he remembers exactly how they feel about him.
Yeah, all of this has happened within the last 5 years though, and I do love how you paint this as ancient history. Like we have
I'm
to go to
just
the
saying there are new NBA fans trying to paint the story for him. I don't know. Some
like
guys may have just started watching last year. I don't know.
like it's like the national we're in the National Archives and it's really like the Dead Sea Scrolls that we're going back to remember all this. God, I really am old enough to remember all this because I covered it. I think it's gonna be great. I think, if from an entertainment standpoint for us, it's gonna be fantastic. I have mentioned to you and Bill both that I lived in Boston for 4 years, and I have a lot of friends from Boston, and they're all insufferable, and they're going to boo the hell out of Kyrie, and Kyrie's going to
Mhm.
lean into it. And for those of us who are neutrals and have no stake in this, it's going to be tremendous entertainment. It's going to be really great. So I'm really looking forward to this. They're going to boo him. He's going to deserve all of it because and he even said at media day the other day, he said that he did not comport himself the way that he should have in Boston, that breakup was messy, and that, the whole, I want to have my jersey retired and up in the rafters, and then off he goes to Brooklyn, and he wasn't in a good headspace back then. I think
Mhm.
you've mentioned it on the show. He's in a much better space right now in
Mhm.
Dallas. He looks like he's enjoying himself. He looks like he's enjoying his teammates. There's For those of you watching on YouTube,
What?
there were balloons just now all of a sudden
I
for
have no
reasons
idea what
surpassing
just happened
understanding.
here. I don't know.
Uh, I'm looking forward to it.
um, what's the over under on Kyrie saging the building game one?
Yeah, he should, right? He should get in there, a little Palo Santo, a little meditation. This version of Kyrie is so far the best version of Kyrie we've seen. He's done some really knucklehead stupid stuff in his career.
Mhm.
He said some things that are, I think, beyond reproach, and tried to defend some positions that aren't good positions to try to defend. This version of Kyrie, it feels like he's at peace. I'm glad he's happy. He's playing really well. And I think going back to Boston it's going to be a lot of fun. It's a great storyline.
I'm interested. Obviously, Kyrie is more equipped to deal with the energy that's going to be in the garden because it's not his first time returning. I feel like if this was maybe the first time, we'd be having a different conversation, but he played in Boston. He returned to Boston already as a Brooklyn
Mhm.
Net. And also, he's been in this league for so long. I think that at this stage in his career, and speaking about his headspace, I think he's equipped to deal with what he's walking into. I wonder though, because he is surrounded by a bunch of guys who've never been this far in the playoffs, have never been. So what is happening here? It's never.
There's
It's never,
pop-up things happening. I think Aaron's playing around with some of the technology for those of you who are watching
it's
on YouTube.
never been. Those guys have never been in the finals. I wonder if by byproduct, the energy and the chaotic energy of the arena is going to affect more of his younger teammates than it will Kyrie specifically.
Uh, just a quick aside. So there was a thought bubble that popped up on your screen, and there were some balloons that popped up on your screen. And I
Yeah.
thought it was Aaron messing around with the technology. He says it's not him.
Okay, so then I'm creeped out.
So yeah, clearly we some sort of StreamYard ghost. We recorded this on StreamYard as the platform has entered the chat and
Oh my
decided to
God.
join us on Beyond the Arc. I don't even know what your question was. I was so thrown by all of the things that are
The
happening.
question was, is Kyrie's equipped to deal with this? But I
Yeah.
wonder if by byproduct, the energy of that TD Garden is going to affect more of his younger teammates who have never been in this situation. It's already bright lights, is already pressure to perform well. I wonder if this is going to affect them more than it will Kyrie.
I mean, it's the finals. It's different. The playoffs are different. You talk to guys and they'll tell you that, especially if you haven't been in it before, the energy it just feels like it's more, right? It's
Mhm.
intense. Uh, it's unrelenting. It doesn't stop. But at this point, you're in the finals. You just went through 3 rounds. You should be
Mhm.
ready to rock. And you
Mhm.
should know that like pretty much every time Kyrie touches the ball, they're probably going to boo the hell out of him.
Mhm.
So just get out there and play. They're booing him. They're not booing Derek Lively and Derek Jones Jr.
Well, going back to Boston, not the city, but the team,
Mhm.
Joe Mazzulla has been a topic of conversation, especially on this podcast between you, myself, and Bill. 35 years old, has never been to the NBA Finals as a player or a coach, which is in direct contrast to Jason Kidd, who, as we know, won the NBA Finals, the Dallas Mavericks. So it's been about what? My math's not that great. It's been about 10 years since he won
13.
as a player. 13. Okay, so 10 years since or 13 rather, since he won as a player and now has a chance to win as a coach. So Joe Mazzulla has been under fire on this podcast by myself and Bill, not so much you, and people in the media space in general about, is sometimes he too reliant on the three ball in his scheme? Does he always make the best decisions? Can he lead this group when the games are tight, when they're close? We have seen Boston kind of put themselves in situations that they really shouldn't have been in throughout the regular season, the postseason, in close games. Do you trust Joe Mazzulla in this series, especially when we talk about him going against a Jason Kidd who has the experience in the NBA Finals as a player and is now a head coach?
Do I trust Joe Mazzulla?
Or do you trust him more than Jason Kidd?
More than Jason Kidd?
Mhm.
No,
Okay.
but I don't not trust Joe Mazzulla. I think they were the best team in the NBA this season, and if he
Mhm.
was going to be an impediment, that would have already popped up. I mean, they have so many good players that they can
Mhm.
overcome a lot. And yes, there were times during the regular season where I was wondering why he was allowing Jason Tatum to just ISO ball, hero ball his way through
Mhm.
the fourth quarter in tight games. And then I went back and looked at it, and I think that's really more of a Jason Tatum problem because Jason Tatum
Mhm.
wasn't great during the regular season. As a clutch player, his field goal percentage was one of the worst among qualified players. I believe it was like just slightly above Klay Thompson. But the team as a whole was good in clutch situations, and they've been awesome
Mhm.
this postseason in clutch situations. So 4-0 in those, and like their net rating in the clutch is like outrageous. It was in the 40s, plus 40s.
Mhm.
So I think he's fine. Could there be a moment where he screws up, maybe like Rick Carlisle style, and forgets to call a timeout or something? That could
Mhm.
happen, but I'm not worried about Joe Mazzulla if I'm a Celtics fan.
I want to push back on this topic when we talk about head coaches because I feel like this has been a narrative that has even surrounded, a coach like Steve Kerr, and Aaron being a Warriors fan but a Steve Kerr hater has kind of spoken to this. Some people believe that there are coaches that are simply game managers, that you have so much talent on your roster that you don't necessarily have to coach them. You have to kind of just guide them, manage them throughout the four quarters of a game versus a coach who really has to go ahead and the X's and the O's and all the logistics and all the intricacies of the game. It's not just about managing the talent. Some may say that the Boston Celtics are so talented that Joe Mazzulla as a head coach doesn't do much to lead this team to victory. It's the talent on the roster that he really just manages to make sure they're in the best position to win. Where would you fall in that conversation?
I mean, if they win championship 18, nobody's going to say Joe Mazzulla is a bad coach, right? And
Yes.
even
Well, they
like,
say he's a genius coach, though. Are you putting him up there with a Popovich or a Phil Jackson? And those may be a little bit more dramatic, but are you putting him up there with a Steve Kerr or a winning coach? And even with Steve Kerr, like I said, there has been pushback that he's not necessarily always coaching. He's more of managing this Hall of Fame talent that he has.
when we're evaluating coaches, a lot of it is like super subjective because
Hmm.
like the NBA, part of what I love about the NBA is there's data on everything. There's
Right?
numbers for everything. I wrote a story though about how we evaluate coaches a few years back, and we don't have as much data on coaches. It's actually still a lot of it is still the eye test. I mean, we can talk about how they
Hmm.
do in ATOs and slobs and things of that nature, but for the most part, it's like, oh, what kind of adjustment did they make? Did it work out? Did he call timeout in the right spot? What's his rotations looking like? A lot
Hmm.
of it is just like, 30,000-foot view.
Hmm.
So am I going to put him in the conversation with Spo and Nick Nurse and
Hmm.
Greg Popovich? No, but they've all been there and done that and been doing it for a while. If he wins 18, all of a sudden he's going to be talked about as one of the better coaches in the NBA.
Well, then I wonder why people come so hard on Doc Rivers. He's won a chip.
Yeah, he won one and hasn't gotten out of the second round in forever and has made some
Hey, he
he
won
continues to
one.
make bonehead decisions too.
Listen, when we come back, we're going to break down more of this list, starting with, is Dereck Lively the second ready or not? We'll be right back.
You hear that? It's the steady pulse of the world's game that's turning fans into family and sport into passion. You hear that? It's the heartbeat of American soccer. The USL on CBS Sports Network.
Welcome back, everybody, to a Tuesday edition of Beyond the Arc. Ashley here, John here, and we are breaking down the 10 biggest questions going into the NBA Finals. And we left off with Dereck Lively. First of all, I don't know if you saw the video circling on social media. Dereck Lively is like a Lego connoisseur. He has a
Oh yeah.
crazy Lego collection of like the Coliseum and just like the Leaning Tower, like he sits there and creates. It's actually very impressive. Like I'm not like a Lego girl, but I can appreciate art. I don't know if this is considered art, but it's very impressive. I mean, these are intricate models that I'm sure it's like thousands and thousands of pieces to go ahead and create this. This is impressive.
If you had said I'm a Lego girl, I would have been like, this is
No,
this is
no.
very surprising. I would not have guessed that.
And if I'm a Lego girl, I was a Lego girl back in the day with the big, thick Legos. These are tiny little Legos, which also Miles Turner, our producer Aaron, just let me know that he's a big Lego guy. I'm also taken aback. They have huge hands, and these pieces are so tiny. Like, how are they constructing these Lego pieces? I'm just very impressed by the whole thing. I
Their
kind of want to dive
dexterity
into
is
it
very
deeper.
impressive. Everybody needs a hobby. Good for him. I mean, if that's his deal,
Yeah,
it's not for me either. I'm not a Lego guy either.
yeah.
More of a like for hobbies. My hobbies are like, reading and
Hmm.
taking the dog for a walk or something. But if he's into Legos, great. That's awesome.
Yeah. I'm always just impressed by like I had a teacher once in middle school or high school rather, and he did those boats that like you have to like take the pencil or whatever and like stick it in there and like pull it up like with the little sail and like the boats in the jars.
Oh yeah, yeah. In the bottles, the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
model ships.
Yes, I was impressed by that too because it's like your hands got to be steady. Like how do you it just listen, big hands, little hobbies. It's just it's very confusing to me. But Dereck Lively, he turned 20 in February
Mhm.
and he was awesome in the Western Conference Final. He's been awesome this entire postseason, honestly. And given everything that he's been dealing with off the court, he lost his mother recently. He lost his father before that. So he's been dealing with a lot in his personal life. You would never know it the way that he plays on the court. Just absolutely just such an impactful player for this Dallas Mavericks team. And I know that we talk about PJ Washington being this reliable third scoring option for Kyrie and Luka. We can go ahead and make an argument that Dereck Lively may be the third most important player on this team with what he has provided this defense, especially when we
Interesting.
talk about protecting the rim and, going against some of the tougher defenses in the league. So again, though, 20 years old, never has been in this position. It's different when you've been there in some way, shape, or form. Is he ready? Is the leadership of Luka and Kyrie enough to put him in the position to succeed?
I mean, so far so good, right?
Right.
That redundancy that you get with him and Gafford,
Mm-hmm.
Bill has talked about it. You've talked about it. I've talked about it. Those two guys, when you combine them, if you look at them instead of as two individuals and look at what you get as one human,
Mm-hmm.
one center, right? However many minutes they're ended up playing
Mm-hmm.
together over the course of a 48-minute game, you get unbelievable production because they do the same things, right? They're both
Mm-hmm.
great rim runners. They're both really good rebounders, and they're both really good rim protectors. So when Gafford comes out and Lively goes in, you don't miss a beat. It's the same skill set.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's been awesome for him to be this good at 20 years old. The Mavs got a good one, man. They
Yeah.
Nico
Yeah.
Harrison and what he's done with this roster, he nailed it.
Well, listen, youth versus experience. He's going to be going against Harford and Porzingis,
Mhm.
who, know a thing or two when it comes to, succeeding, and know a thing or two when it comes to tricks. Lively's going to be at a disadvantage there, but he has youth on his side. So if you had to pick which is more important, what are you going with, youth or experience?
Well, young legs are good, but yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you're right. I mean, like Al Horford has been there and done that. He's a really
Mm-hmm.
experienced veteran. He's an awesome player. He's been a very good player in this league for a long time. And Kristaps Porzingis is, I would say despite the fact that he's now on some nights, the fourth or fifth option. Sometimes, some nights
Mm-hmm.
it's his night and he's the main guy, but mostly he's like 3 through 5, somewhere in there. He's enjoying probably his best season. So I'd probably go with those two. But
Okay.
Lively is the sky's the limit for this kid. He's going to be really good for a long time.
Yeah, really, really impressive. Moving on, we're gonna talk about the Celtics and whose team is it, and does
Okay.
it matter? Now, Jaylen Brown won Eastern Conference Finals MVP. Congratulations to him. And I know you took umbrage with when he said he's never won anything, so he was surprised when he won this award. Jason Tatum, although looking at his stat line, you would never say it was inefficient. You would say it was inefficient in terms of what the caliber of player Jason Tatum is. It's not really what he can go ahead and produce. Now, he had 100 turnovers in the run throughout the 2022 playoffs, where they lost to the Warriors in the finals, the most ever for a single playoffs. 100 turnovers is a lot. There's
Yeah,
been
it
a lot
is.
of questions about Jason Tatum. Can he be the guy? Is this his team? Is he a superstar? Is he the face of the league? And one of the pushbacks have always been, when it comes to these moments, he kind of retreats instead of attacking. So when looking at the Celtics, who's the leader of this team going into this matchup? Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, or does it really not even matter that much?
Yeah, I don't think it matters that much because this team again has so many good players, and we saw to start the season or to start the
Mhm.
playoffs, Ash, where Jason Tatum was not shooting the ball well at
Right?
all, and he looked lost offensively. There was moments in the Cavs series where Tristan Thompson got switched onto him, and instead of attacking the rim and taking him to the hole, he was shooting
Mhm.
step back jumpers and trying to get his jump shot going. I'm like, what are you doing, man? Like, get some easy buckets and get to the line.
Mhm.
But the reason why it doesn't matter is because he can, in the same way that I was saying that the Celtics could win this series without Kristaps Porzingis, the
Mhm.
Celtics cruised their way through the Eastern Conference, admittedly not a great conference, but cruised their way through it with Jason Tatum not shooting the ball well until, didn't really
Mhm.
get going offensively until the Eastern Conference Finals against the Pacers, because
Mhm.
they have Jaylen Brown and they've got Drew Holiday and they've got Dereck White, and they've got a really good bench. And like,
Mhm.
that's, they don't really need Jason Tatum to be, he finished 5 in the MVP voting. I would have put your guy Jalen Brunson in there at 5
Mhm.
in retrospect, even though initially I had Tatum, but they don't need him to be. They don't need him to be that guy.
I wonder, let's go ahead and just fast forward a little bit. And let's say the Celtics win the finals and it's Jaylen Brown who's the best player in all of the games. Let's say it goes 6 games and he is the best player in those games and he wins finals MVP. Does that change the narrative surrounding Jason Tatum, not only as a superstar player, but the superstar or the main character on this Boston Celtics team.
Maybe a little, but then I think about like with the Warriors when Kevin Durant won Finals MVP and nobody went, "Oh, it's Kevin Durant's team, not Steph Curry's team." Everybody was like, "No, it's still Steph's team." Good for Kevin
Yeah.
Durant. He was really good in this series. And also, here's the other thing: if they win and they have their
Mhm.
stupid duck boat parade in Boston along the Charles River, and all those idiots all my idiot friends turn out to get excited about it. Nobody's going to be like, "Oh, Jaylen Brown won. I wonder if Jason Tatum's any good." And on top of that,
Mhm.
Jason Tatum's going to get a supermax contract this
This
extension
is
this
true.
offseason anyway. So, yeah, I mean, if Jaylen Brown wins Finals MVP, good for him, but I don't think it's going to really change much materially.
Well, we're talking about two of the best players in the league, and now we're
Yeah,
going to go ahead and talk about another best player in the league, and that is Luka. But the question is he the best player in the world right now? Finals often come down to the who has the best player, and I think that a lot of people would make an argument that if you took all the names, the big names in this competition in the finals right now, Luka might be the brightest star of them all. And for reasons that I said, Jaylen Brown, fantastic, Kyrie Irving, fantastic. They have their things with the public have their things with them. Jason Tatum, a lot of questions about him. But one player people don't have that many questions about is that guy, Luka. Now, he averaged 34, 9, and 8, against the best defense on the planet in the Western Conference Finals. Absolutely made Anthony Edwards look like a non-factor in so many of those games. Second behind only Michael Jordan in career playoff scoring average. He may be the MVP favorite going into next season. He was an MVP favorite this season. He's always in the MVP conversation. But if we look at the landscape of these NBA finals, would you say that Luka is the best player in this matchup? And would you say, when we're talking about the best in the world, considering how the other people have fallen, Jokic fell, all these other guys have fallen, KD has fallen, LeBron has fallen this year, is he the best in the world?
he's the best player in this series for sure. He's certainly
Okay.
playing the best basketball of anybody. I mean, he just cut through 2 top 5 defenses in the Thunder and then the Wolves, and then he's got another top 5 defense to face in the Celtics in the finals. He's playing out of his head right now. He's
Mhm.
been really, really good. And like as you mentioned, the Wolves have
Triple
so
double
many
King.
different players that they tried to throw at him, and none of it worked. Jaden McDaniels didn't work, Rudy
Mhm.
Gobert didn't work, Anthony Edwards didn't work. Doesn't matter. He's matchup proof. He's really good. Is he
Mhm.
the best player in the world? I don't think so, but I think it's really interesting that we're even having the conversation because there's a handful of guys where you're going to talk about they're the best players in the world. Like you're going to have Joker in that
Mhm.
conversation. You're going to have Giannis in that conversation. LeBron, despite the fact that he's 39 years old and was third team All NBA, I would have had him second. As long as he's still out there as LeBron James on any given night, he could be the best player in the world.
Mhm.
Um, Joel Embiid, before he got hurt and was dropping 70 on the Spurs and was scoring a point per minute, first guy since Will to do it, and also plays incredible defense. He's somebody you might consider. But yeah, Luka's in
Mhm.
that mix, right? I mean, like he's a handful of guys in the NBA, in basketball, in the world, where you look at it and go, oh yeah, we have to mention him. He's that good.
When would you say that people, let's go ahead and say everyone universally agrees that Jokic right now is the best player in the world, and I feel like that's not a far-fetched idea, right? When would you say that that was solidified? Was it when he won MVP, or was it when he won MVP and won a championship?
Yeah, I mean, he had a really good year this year, but
Mhm.
losing to the Wolves takes a little bit of shine off of it.
Mhm.
What he did last year when he
Mhm.
won the MVP and then or didn't win the MVP, when Joel Embiid won the MVP, and
Mhm.
then he went, okay, he won the award, but now watch what I'm going to do in the playoffs, where he
Mhm.
steamrolled through. That was an historic performance by him, one of the
Mhm.
great all-time individual efforts in postseason history. That's when I, as somebody who obviously has seen Joel Embiid up close since he came into the league and
Mhm.
was kind of want to say, well, Embiid plays better defense. I mean, like Embiid is a really, really good defender,
Mhm.
and Joker can be sometimes if he
Mhm.
puts his mind to it. That postseason run was unbelievable. That to me was the moment where I went, okay, yeah, it's Joker. I mean, like Embiid might have the MVP, but look what this guy just did. It was unbelievable.
So I asked that because if that was the catalyst for naming Jokic the best in the world, if Luka does that this year, wins Finals MVP, wins the Finals, does he then take that crown from Jokic, seeing how that's what it took for everyone to go ahead and say that Jokic was the best in the world?
That's a really good point, and I think it's underlined or would be underlined by what we
Mhm.
just talked about. He would have done it against 3 straight top 5 defenses. If you do that, all of us, at the very least, you're the MVP favorite for next season. But yeah, that
Mhm.
would be an eye opener because the Celtics are the heavy favorites here. They're a
Mhm.
really good team. They're a really deep team. They're the Mavericks have been an excellent defensive team since after the trade deadline when
Yeah.
we talked about,
Yeah.
Gafford and Derek Jones Jr. into the starting. But in terms of two-way basketball, the Celtics are deeper and they're better at
Mhm.
both ends. So if Luka pulls this off, it will have to be a superhuman effort. And then, yeah, all of a sudden we're like, okay, maybe it's Luka now.
Well, you mentioned the Celtics are the better team and the favorited team in this matchup. 6 Eastern Conference Finals appearances for them in the last 8 years, 2 Finals appearances in the last 3 years. Now, we keep talking about the easy path. They went through an injured Miami, they went through an injured Cleveland, they went through a semi-injured Indiana and a team that they were drastically better than, swept them no problem, and they didn't have to deal with Denver in the finals. Won't have to deal with Denver in the finals. Rather, now extensions for Brown, Tatum, Drew Holiday make them very expensive very, very soon. But the real question is it now or never for the Celtics? They keep getting close, but not close enough. Close, but no cigar. My dad likes to say all the time, almost only counts in horseshoes. And this is basketball.
And hand grenades.
So
Don't forget that part.
that too. So is it now or never for the Celtics? We can talk about the Eastern Conference and how it may not be as competitive as the Western Conference is next year, but it'll be healthier, hopefully. So that goes ahead and makes it unpredictable in so many different ways. There are teams that you have to look out for. Obviously, the normal teams that are always in the mix, but Orlando is going to be a good team. The Knicks are now always in the conversation. Cleveland will be a good team, regardless of whether or not they can keep Donovan Mitchell. There's a lot of things to consider. Miami's always there. So is it now or never for this Boston team?
I would love to say that, and I understand why we're asking that question, right? Because
Mhm.
they've gotten so close, and so it's really about like, doesn't it have to be this year? Because they had the best offense in the NBA, they had the second best defense in the NBA during the regular season, they had the best point differential, they had the third best net rating in NBA history. They're that good.
Okay.
So that's why we're kind of asking this question. Is it now or never though? No, because this team is young enough that they'll be together for a while. They're, regardless of what happens in this finals, they'll be
Mhm.
the favorite in the Eastern Conference next season too, because you rattled off all the teams in the Eastern Conference. There's question marks
I
up
also forgot
and
Milwaukee. Sorry,
yeah,
Milwaukee. Forgot.
yeah, and there's question
Philly.
marks with every single team. You look at the
Mhm.
Knicks, I think the Knicks are probably the second best team heading into next season, but they did have injury issues. They got to
Mhm.
re-sign OG Anunoby. I know you don't like to talk about this, but what's going to happen with Julius Randle? That could be something. Then you go down the roster, right? Like Milwaukee didn't work out the first year with those two
Right.
guys teamed up together. Maybe it'll work out next year. Cleveland, what's going to happen with Donovan Mitchell? Orlando's still young and needs offensive firepower. Indiana, they're going to re-sign Siakam, but can that be something that's repeatable? I
Mhm.
don't know. The Sixers have two guys that are going to be on the roster next year, and then the rest of the roster is completely up for grabs. So it's still going to be the Celtics going into next season.
Also, Miami, a lot of question marks about Jimmy Butler. They don't have much
Yes.
in stock to go ahead and trade away to get a better, bigger, younger, healthier player. It looks like, for all intents and purposes, they're going to run it back. Will that be enough? So, yeah, I mean, to your point, I feel like there are people that can go ahead and maybe push them to the brink, maybe make things uncomfortable for them. But unlike the Western Conference, I don't know how many true contenders there are to go ahead and make it that uncomfortable for them where you wouldn't go ahead and make them the favorite.
They're the favorites. I mean,
Okay.
and they're going to be the favorites for a minute. And I hate to say that because the one thing that you and I are aligned on as New Yorker and Philadelphian is that
Yeah.
it's such a bummer when Boston is good at stuff. I hate it.
Yeah. I hate it. Listen,
Yeah,
when we
but
come
they are.
back,
They're so good.
we have hit our top 3 on the 10 biggest questions going into this NBA finals. And we're going to start with Luka and Kyrie. We'll do that when we get back.
Football action continues. Are you ready for this? Ready to take chances? As the gridiron is taken over by the Great White North. It's time to storm the fortress. It's time to fight on the battlefield. Catch the Canadian Football League on CBS Sports Network.
Welcome back, everybody, to Beyond the Arc. Ashley here, John here. And listen, we talk backcourts, we talk Steph and Clay, Magic and Byron Scott. We talk MJ and insert a name.
Mhm.
And now apparently we are also talking Kyrie and Luka, and very much deserved after what we saw them do in the Western Conference Finals. And Stan Van Gundy had this to say about that conversation.
Coach, Dallas, they have two guys that are pretty electrifying as well.
Yeah, and Minnesota's top-rated defense is going to be challenged trying to slow them down. Arguably the best offensive backcourt in the history of the NBA in Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving.
Did you say history?
In the history of the NBA.
Listen, history is putting them up there with those guys that I named before the sound, and across from them is going to be a backcourt of Dereck White and Jrue Holiday. Jrue Holiday, who I think is one of the best defenders in the NBA, and statistics can go ahead and back that up. But do you feel like that's a little bit jumping the broom, crowning Luka and Kyrie the one of, if not the best offensive backcourt in NBA history? Now, Kyrie did speak about this, and he said it doesn't mean a thing unless we get that ring. He didn't quite rhyme like that. I'm rhyming, but
I like it.
do you feel like maybe that's a little bit jumping the gun here?
At first I did. And then like I sat there and like really thought about it. And so immediately Steph and Klay come to mind. I think that they're the best backcourt in NBA history for a lot of reasons. And what Kyrie mentioned about it doesn't mean anything unless they end up winning a championship. Well, Steph and Klay have won multiple championships, right? So that I think necessarily makes them the best backcourt. And then I was like, well, who else would even be in the conversation? And I'm like, all right, Harden and Westbrook from back in the day, I guess. MJ and anybody is a good one. Isaiah and Joe Dumars, no, like you know, Magic. And yeah, I'm like, you start all of a sudden, you're like, you're getting into the like Tim Hardaway, Mitch Richmond conversations. You're like, no, this might be. I mean, like this team is, again, what they did against these last two, and Kyrie hadn't even really played like Kyrie for much of the postseason.
Not for
Luka
4
was
quarters,
kind of going nuts. But once those two really get unlocked at the same time, man, that is unbelievable offensive firepower.
So then for you, and I wonder for a lot of people, we talk about winning and we talk about how that is, you know, a big aspect of this conversation. Even if Luka and Kyrie don't win, maybe not the best offensive backcourt in NBA history, but is it safe to say top 3? Even if they don't win, just statistics based alone, is it safe to say top 3?
Yeah, I mean, you know, there was that stat that we had where they were the first duo in NBA history to have 3 or more 30-point games each in the same games. So like just offensively, like I said, when they're unlocked, they're incredible. So yeah, I mean, the defense component factors in though, right? Because like at least with Steph and Klay was a really good defender for a long time. With these two guys, you're kind of like, oh, they're trying. Well, look at them try. Like they're giving some effort. Whereas previously there was like not so much effort. And that to their credit has a lot to do with why this Dallas defense has been better post trade deadline, because you're getting some effort. You just need some effort from those guys. But offensively, yeah, they're unbelievable.
You said, look at them try. Reminds me of that Simpsons meme with the cake where it says, at least you tried. Listen, we're going to get back to Luka and Kyrie in a second, but first let's go to the Celtics. What needs to happen for them to win? Obviously, I feel like number one, you got to figure out a way to slow down Luka, and that's not an easy task, all right? Dallas role players are going to have to make some shots, and you want to make them make those shots, or you want to force them to take those shots rather, because we already know what Luka and Kyrie can do. Role players tend to not play well on the road. And again, we spoke about this earlier in the show. A lot of those role players have never been in this position. Sometimes the lights get a little bright. Sometimes, you know, it gets a little bit of a big task, too much food, too much dip on your chip, whatever you want to say. What are some of the key things you're looking at for the Celtics to go ahead and win the series? Obviously, you need to be smart with their 3-pointers, not take too many, take just the right amount. You live by the 3, you die by the 3, but what else is in there for you?
Yeah, I'm going to even say, you know, slowing down Luka, good luck. Like I actually, you know, because the the Wolves tried it, and the Thunder actually did a pretty decent job against him and Kyrie in that series. Their strategy of let's try to slow down those two main guys and make PJ Washington beat them, I think was academically sound. And then PJ Washington was like,
called their bluff,
supernova, and hit a bunch of shots.
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to be able to slow down Luka. What do the Celtics need to do to win? I think just play with their game, do what they've been doing. I mean, they love to jack up threes. They took the most threes during the regular season and in
Concerns
the
about
postseason.
that.
What's that?
Do you have concerns about that? We've seen that story with the Celtics before, that sometimes they get a little bit too happy on the 3-ball trigger.
No, because that's the way that they've been playing all season. Sometimes it doesn't fall, but
Okay.
they're playing the odds. And the odds for this team is 1 through 6 can all shoot the 3. And if all of them are cold, fine, you're going to lose the game. But it's so rare that all of them are cold. And then even if they are all cold, their defense is unbelievable. Again, 1 through 6, they can all play defense. So that keeps them in games. I think they just have to like not do anything crazy, radical, different than they've been doing all season long. You got here for a reason. They've been the best team for a reason. They're going to jack up a bunch of threes, and they're going to play great defense, and they're the favorites for a reason.
Before we move on to the Mavs, the biggest concern you have about the Celtics, like the big bright spot of concern for you, for me, I'll say, what version of Jason Tatum am I going to get? Am I going to get the Jason Tatum who's kind of slow in the middle of starting in the game and decides he doesn't want to go ahead and, play until the fourth quarter, maybe overtime? And Jaylen Brown said, "Thank you, JT, for joining us." For me, Jason Tatum is my biggest point of concern. What version of him am I going to get from day in and day out? What about you?
I'd love to say that there's a glaring thing here.
Okay,
but there's not. Like
Ooh.
the Celtics are so like it drives me insane, but they really don't have a weakness. I guess if I had a super nitpick on this, I'll go back to what I said about a couple of times during the regular season when Jason Tatum felt like he had to play hero ball. You don't need to. Run the offense. The offense is number 1 in the NBA. Just do that. Like, I don't think that you need Jason Tatum to take it all on your shoulders. We saw how Jaylen Brown acquitted himself when Jason Tatum wasn't shooting the ball very well. Jrue Holiday has been awesome this postseason. Dereck White, he's another guy who made second team all defense, and he's been really good this season offensively. I thought he should have been an all-star. You're getting Kristaps Porzingis back. There's so much here that whoever ends up getting MVP, great, congratulations. But don't try to be that guy. Just play your game.
We're going to switch to the Mavs now, the team that has the best player in the series. We both agree on that. And what does this team need to do to win? Now, obviously, they have to go ahead and make sure they remain calm, cool, and collective when Boston goes on their 3-ball rampage, because it's going to go ahead and happen. Those shots are definitely going to fall. How do you respond? How do you remain calm? Role players need to go ahead and do their thing. You need PJ Washington to be the reliable scorer he has been throughout the postseason in some way, shape, or form. For you, what is the biggest thing that you're looking for the Mavs in order for them to win this series?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things got to happen. They don't have the same margin for error that the Celtics do.
Fair.
So Luka and Kyrie have to be unbelievable in 4 games to win those 4 games.
4 quarters.
And on top of that, what's that?
4 quarters too, because Kyrie likes.
You gotta play the full game, but you need to pick up 4 wins here, and you can't have a Kyrie game where he's just like kind of inefficient. Part of what makes Kyrie so good is that he is usually very efficient and one of the most efficient guards, really, of his era. We need efficient. And I'm saying we, from the Mavs perspective, the Mavs need efficient Kyrie to pick up 4 wins. They need Luka to be the Luka that we've seen so far to pick up 4 wins. You're going to need PJ Washington to hit those outside shots. And then Lively and Gafford are going to have to be really good at both ends. You don't need them to be offensive juggernauts, but I like to, when they're rim running and they're catching lobs, they're very effective. And then defensively, they've got to be those like outrageous rim protectors that they've been for much of the postseason so far. And all of those things. And then Derrick Jones Jr., I'd like to see him lock up one of the, probably throw him at Jason Tatum and try to make his life more difficult. All of those things need to happen simultaneously over 4 games. Whereas with the Celtics, some things could go wrong, and then they have so many other ways to beat you that they could still pick up 4. So it's a tall order for the Mavs, but I don't think it's impossible.
We're definitely going to save our predictions for our Thursday show on network. So we're going to go ahead and not say that, but I think we know where John's leading, which direction he's leaning towards. Before we go ahead and close out today's episode, want to make a quick announcement that the Sixers are expected to re-sign your guy, Tyrese Maxey, to a 5-year, $205 million deal. So congratulations to the young GOAT, Tyrese Maxey, who I am a fan of. I know that's crazy coming from a Knicks fan, but he is phenomenal. And one more piece of the 76ers has fallen into place. You just need, I don't know, 12 more. So
Yeah, they got
there you
2
go,
guys right
John.
now. You might need more than 2 guys, but we'll find out.
We'll figure it out. We'll make
Yeah.
it work. Well, you'll make it work. You know, I'm not invested. I don't care.
Yes.
Listen, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're watching on YouTube or if you're listening on audio, we appreciate you. Make sure you are liking, subscribing, sharing with your friends, wherever you get your podcast. And we will be back on CBS Sports Network on Thursday to get you ready for game 1. And I believe we will also be on Friday so we can recap game 1. We've hit the final stretch of the season, so make sure you guys are tapping in with us because there's still a lot of basketball to talk about. Until tomorrow, for myself, for John, we'll see you guys then. Bye.